Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. Before the next general elections, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is on one of his last foreign visits before his term ends. And poignantly, these are trips to two Gulf nations, UAE and Qatar. In one, he held his biggest diaspora event to date and is set to inaugurate the first Hindu temple. In another, he will be landing after completing one of the biggest diplomatic coups in recent memory by securing the safe release of 8 ex-Navy officers. In many ways, both of these events highlight the extent to which Modi-lopathy has transformed India's relations with the Gulf just in the last 10 years. Unrealized for many decades because of religious factors and historical baggage, India-Middle East ties are now taking center stage. Both these regions have great desire to shape the future world and have something unique to offer, a little bit different from the Western Anglo viewpoint. They also have great shared concerns in the region, and with progressive countries like the UAE and Saudi Arabia, for example, India has found new partners to counter certain regional threats. As Modi once again teases his third term, this time on foreign soil as he did last evening in UAE, the question we ask is this: has he truly transformed India-Gulf relations, and how can he expand on this if he was to be re-elected? We'll take that question to our experts joining us in just a bit. But let me first further break down why does the UAE matter so much. There are multiple reasons. I'm going to break this down into two parts. Let's first take a look at the economic factors. Of course, that is often the backbone of any two countries' relationship beyond diplomacy and other factors. The two countries are amongst each other's top trading partners. Bilateral trade, for example, between the two was recorded at $85 billion in 2022-23. UAE is also amongst top 4 investors in India. It also has a 3.5 million strong Indian diaspora. So what does that mean? It means that it is the second highest source of inward remittances after the US, mind you. UAE is also key provider of to India for gas and oil. So a very key partner because these are strategically very important imports. Geopolitically as well, UAE plays an important role for India. It is of course considered a gateway for India at least to the Islamic world, the Gulf world. They have backed India on the abrogation of Article 370 in the past when many other countries were raising questions or concerns. UAE is also very powerful in the Middle East, West Asia politics and connections. And this is also very key for India. And another important factor is China. China's growing influence in the Middle East is one of the things that this partnership can counter over the next decade or so. Now, since Prime Minister Narendra Modi has come to power in 2014, he has kept focus on India's Middle East policy, which is why I said that Modi-lopathy has really changed the way India and the Gulf interact today. Let me point out how. He's made as many as 15 trips to the Middle East. This is much higher than any previous Prime Minister. In fact, his visit to UAE in 2015, soon after he was elected, was the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister to UAE since 1981. Apart from that, something that Narendra Modi is known for is developing personal rapport with world leaders. He's done so with the Gulf Emirs. And that is one of the most important factors because this region's diplomacy works a lot on personal rapport of the Emirs as well, and that can shift the relationship between the two countries. Now there are groupings today involving India and Gulf countries, which is a new phenomenon. So of course there's I2U2, India, Israel, USA and UAE, which is one such grouping that has come. And at the G20 summit recently, the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor was also announced. There is greater partnership between these regions now in non-traditional domains. Not just about procuring petrol and oil and all of that. It's moving into areas like green energy, space, semiconductors and artificial intelligence. It wasn't just bilateral engagements that was on the Prime Minister's docket. He was actually invited to address World Government Summit in Dubai today. He noted that the challenges of the previous century including food, health, water and energy security, are increasing despite the progress in technology. Let me also highlight some of his other address points, particularly on his own governance model. So message one was that citizens must not feel government's pressure. Instead, government's absence must also not be felt either. He emphasized something he talked about when he was first elected: maximum governance, minimal government. That government's job is to ensure interference is at minimal, but governance is maximum. He has also reiterated India's commitment to Sabka Saath and mentioned how the quota for women passed in Indian Parliament is going to ensure that in the future, and has emphasized on last mile delivery approach. This is something the Modi government says it has managed to do much better than previous governments as far as some of its schemes are concerned. Let's focus now, of course, on what is coming up. Diplomacy is going to be, partnered with demotion, because now, in a few minutes from now, the attention will shift to the largest Hindu temple outside of India that the Prime Minister will be inaugurating. This is the same temple for which the Prime Minister laid the foundation in 2017. And in fact, in that visit to UAE in 2015 is when the idea was mooted that a temple should come up in the UAE, which seemed quite an impossible thing at that time. But look, it has come true. Let me just break down some of the special features of this temple that is going to be inaugurated by the Prime Minister. The design draws inspiration from Vedic architecture. I'll break that down more in just a bit. Its shikhars actually depict stories from Indian epics, Ramayana, Shiv Puran. In fact, the shikhars also narrate stories from Mahabharata. There is no iron or steel reinforcements that have been used. This is something that is done traditionally. While Rajasthan's famous pink sandstone has been used on the exteriors of this temple. Fly ash has apparently been used to reduce the carbon footprint during the construction of the temple, and it has a very strong India connect. In fact, there is connect across religions and across the world, but artisans from Gujarat and Rajasthan have actually carved out pillars in this temple. And while of course this is a Vaishnavite sect, the Swaminarayan temple that is opening, there are idols of Ram, Sita, Shiva, Parvati, Radha, Krishna, other Indian gods and goddesses also in this temple. Now this is a traditional stone Hindu temple with several shikhars, and it has been built in the traditional Nagar style. So 7 shikhars as far as this temple is concerned. You can see in some of those images that we're playing out as well. And quite like the Ayodhya Ram temple, this temple has also been built in the Nagar style. Also, there are the 7 shikhars are promoting the concept of, or they're representative of, the 7 emirates of the UAE. The temple has 2 central domes, Dome of Harmony and Dome of Peace. These are obviously emphasizing coexistence through their carvings of earth, water, fire, air and plants as well. Now there are 96 bells and gormukhs that have been placed on the premises as you make your way into the temple, to the main temple complex. And one of the most interesting facets that we've also brought to you earlier is that there is a holy river that runs around this temple, which is a very nice, very serene, atmosphere creating element, and actually waters from Ganga and Yamuna in India, the holy rivers, have been used in that river. There is also River Saraswati that has been depicted as white light. River Saraswati obviously has great civilizational and historical reference for Indic culture. There is a Varanasi-like ghat that has been depicted inside where Ganga flows from. Overall, this temple is spread over 27 acres. The temple is about half of that, and the other half is being used for areas like parking, etc. It's 108 feet high, 180 feet wide, and 262 feet in length. And finally, about 700 crore rupees have been spent on the construction of this temple. Now, this event is about to begin any minute from now. A lot of Indian celebrities and others are also in attendance. Before we get you live from UAE, the big issue we're debating today is this. With devotion, the diaspora and diplomacy all mixed together, has Prime Minister Modi transformed the Gulf Connect to an extent that was possibly not imagined ever before? We'll take that with our experts in just a bit.
आज भारत और यूएई के बीच में हर क्षेत्र में एक साझी भागीदारी हो रही है। हेड ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट के तौर पर लगातार काम करते हुए मुझे 23 साल होने जा रहे हैं। मैं मानता हूं कि सरकार का अभाव भी नहीं होना चाहिए और सरकार का दबाव भी नहीं होना चाहिए।
So viewers, we are inside this grand BAPS temple in Abu Dhabi, and it is grand, huge, and words are not enough to describe the grandeur of this temple.
Like he mentioned, we're on the inside of the mandir. Behind us, this is the Garbhagriha. This is where the murtis of Bhagwan Swaminarayan and Akshar Purushottam will be installed. Pran Pratishtha yahi pe hogi.
Well, lots lined up over the next 1 hour. I want to quickly introduce our experts joining us. Dr. Wael Awad is Middle East expert, Professor Brahma Chaleni, strategic affairs expert, Ashok Sajjanha, former Indian diplomat, and Professor Madhav Nalapad, Vice Chair, Manipal Advanced Research Group. I do thank you all, gentlemen, for your time, and I have lots of questions lined up for you, but I want to quickly go across to my colleague, Siddhant Mishra, who's joining us first from the big temple inauguration event, the BAPS temple. Siddhant, give me a sense first of how many people are expected to personally view, what are the arrangements that they've made for others to view this around UAE, and the big names that will be in attendance today.
Well, absolutely, Shivani. Today is a historic day, and perhaps there's a lot of requests pending with the BAPS organizers to do the darshan of the Hindu temple, perhaps the largest stone-built Hindu temple in the Middle East. And only a few people have been accommodated today, those who belong to BAPS, or perhaps have been volunteering all this while they have been invited. Then there are a lot of celebrities, we have been told, Shivani, are participating, which includes actor Akshay Kumar, businessman Ahlan Modi, and musician Shankar Mahadevan. So those dignitaries have already arrived, and there is going to be a surprise element also, Shivani, because as we have been told that there could be somebody senior from the royal family participating with Prime Minister Modi for Pran Pratishtha of Bhagwan Swaminarayan, and it could be President Mohamed bin Zayed Al Nahyan also, but we are still awaiting official confirmation. Now, Shivani, also there are a lot of Shramiks. In fact, they have played the most important role by building this temple in the heat of the desert area of Abu Dhabi. And during COVID times, it was really tough to go ahead with this project. So those Shramiks have been especially invited by the organizers, and Prime Minister Modi is going to meet them, click selfies with all of them, is going to thank them.
That's very interesting what you mentioned, Siddharth, because the Prime Minister makes it a point to meet the Shramiks. At any big construction event or any kind of big event. He does that in India as well. So it seems like he's carrying forward that message of meeting those who work on a construction project.
Absolutely, Shivani. And also, yesterday while addressing a diaspora at Ahlan Modi event, the time of, in the beginning only of his speech, he said, कि Zayed stadium में भारतीयों के पसीने से महक रहा है. So, each time around, whenever he he contribution of the people from the Indian origin, and especially in the Middle East, there are a lot many of have been contributing to the growth of UAE, especially since 1971, and that is being acknowledged by their government and also appreciated by their government. Shivani, now Shivani, I do have certain security constraints, but I would like to show those are the GVICs, Shivani, on both sides where we are from, and Prime Minister is going to perhaps take a walk and will come to them at the time of doing parikrama. This is what we've been told, and is going to click selfies and thank them for their contribution. That is actually Prime Minister's style. Uh, and always he has always done that. Goes for the inauguration of the monument, any project called.
Okay. It's going to be a little bit difficult to get absolutely great network with Siddhant, but we'll try and reconnect with him. I think he was trying to show us around a little bit. And Siddhant, if you can still hear me, we'll come back to you as and when you're ready. Do show us around a little bit of what's really taking place right now as we wait for that event to begin. Let me go across to our guests in the meantime. Professor Brahmachalini, let me begin with you. I have outlined a few things that Modi has done, which are very obvious things, how he has transformed the Gulf Connect with India. What, according to you, has been his biggest achievement and his particular style that has worked when transforming this relationship?
First, I think Modi has ended the neglect of the Gulf that we saw under several governments. For example, the last Prime Minister who visited UAE before Modi was Indira Gandhi in 1981. For 34 years, no one went to UAE until Modi went there in 2015. So he has consciously sought to improve and strengthen relations, not just with the UAE, but with all the Gulf states. He has reached out to Saudi Arabia, to Qatar, and of course, with traditional partner Oman, and even with tiny Bahrain, India's ties have improved. And I think he has done, while strengthening strategic and economic ties, he has also managed to highlight the cultural element. For example, inaugurating this temple is remarkable given the fact that this huge temple, in fact, this is the largest stone-built temple in the entire Middle East. The largest stone-built Hindu temple. He has several small Hindu temples, but this is the first stone-constructed Hindu temple. And it's a showpiece. It's in fact a symbol of UAE-India friendship, partnership. And this temple became possible only because of Modi's personal rapport with the UAE president, Sheikh Mohammed, who is also the ruler of Abu Dhabi. It is Sheikh Mohammed who facilitated the construction of this temple. And Modi's 7th visit to the UAE cements his special relationship with Sheikh Mohammed. In international relations, we focus too much on national interests. But personal chemistry is also very important.
Yeah. And that is showing in the case of Qatar, for example. But I'll come to Qatar in just a bit. You said there was a neglect of India-Gulf relations. So to truly understand the difference in the way of thinking, why do you think India, quote-unquote, neglected to build its relationship with the Gulf earlier?
Well, India viewed the Gulf largely from the energy perspective and also as a source of remittances from Indian workers. There wasn't this effort to create partnerships with the sheikdoms in the Persian Gulf. I think in more recent years, it began to be sure when Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister, but it gained traction only when Prime Minister Modi took office.
Okay.
And under his leadership, we have recognized the importance of building close partnerships with the Gulf states this also helps this, and this is a very important point, because India wants to diversify its risks. It wants to
Yes.
have multi-aligned foreign policy. It doesn't want to depend too much on the US, for example. So, for example, the US today is the world's largest producer and exporter of gas. And India has signed several LNG deals with the US. But despite Qatar's bad behavior, and we've seen, bad behavior on the part of Qatar, not once but twice. The first in the Nipur Sharma case, and when it summoned the Indian 8 ex-Indian Navy men and put them in solitary confinement on trumped-up charges, despite Qatar's problematic aspects. We have reached out to Qatar because we can't afford to ignore Qatar, simply because Qatar is a very huge LNG exporter.
Exactly.
And if we have to diversify our,
Imports.
our imports,
Yeah.
it's very important that we maintain good
Yeah, so there is a
relations with
certain
Qatar.
pragmatism, despite the fact that there was such a hullabaloo about what Qatar said and did, particularly as you mentioned in the Nupur Sharma case, which was an embarrassment for the ruling BJP. There's a certain pragmatism when it comes to dealing with these relationships. It's not as if you're going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'd also want to go across to Ashok Sajjandar very quickly. It's interesting also because it's not like this is coming at the cost of something else, right? India has good relationships and advancing relationships with the US. They haven't given up on Israel. They are maintaining or actually advancing relationships in the Middle East and continue to have their traditional ties with Russia. So that multipolarity or, that multi-alignment that Brahmachaleni was talking about, UAE and Middle East is a great example of that. This relationship was possibly being bogged down by multiple factors, but as we've shown in recent years, those factors need not dictate how well we can do with the Middle East.
No, absolutely. You're very right, Shivani. And I think a few points would demonstrate what you've been saying and what you've been discussing. As you said very rightly, the first visit of Prime Minister Modi in August 2015 was after a gap of 34 years. This speaks of the neglect from India, but it also speaks of the fact that the UAE looked at its relationship with India through the prism of Pakistan. And Pakistan has always used its Islamic card, its religious card to reach out to these countries in the Middle East. And we have given up on these countries, basically thinking that they will always
Prefer Pakistan.
Islamic card is too strong for them. But I think that has not been the case. Just one point, as we said, first visit after 34 years, and from 2015 till now, that is the seventh
visit to UAE alone.
UAE alone, absolutely. 15 overall to the region, but 7 to UAE. So it speaks of the outreach that Prime Minister Modi has made. The other aspect is, I think, the level of trust, confidence, and the comfort level between the two leaders. As the Prime Minister himself said that in 2015, his first visit when he came there, and he mentioned in passing that he would like some land for an Indian temple.
Yes.
And at that time, it was the Crown Prince, Zayed Al Nahyan. He was the Crown Prince at that time, not the President. And he said, fine, you just put your finger where you want that land to be.
And we'll give you that portion of land.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it is yours. So I think that another example that I could give is in 2022 when both India and UAE signed the CEPA, Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. Our FTA with the European Union, we've been negotiating on it from 2007. I was in Brussels at that time. And this CEPA was concluded in 80 or 90 days. That is about 3 months or so. Again, that is indicative of the level of confidence.
Yeah, but
So
how
the
did he
point
build that
I'm-
confidence so suddenly? Is it just that Narendra Modi just has that knack and tact? I'll come back to our other two guests in just a bit with that. Please do be patient with me. We're getting some live visuals from the BAPS temple as well. This is Prime Minister Narendra Modi now arriving. He's wearing traditional Indian attire. He's wearing dhoti kurta and he's coming and I think meeting the representative of the Swaminarayan Foundation who are inaugurating this temple. Great camaraderie being shown there as well. The very typical Modi ki jappi and more. The Prime Minister just recently was obviously part of the big Ayodhya consecration ceremony or Pran Pratishtha ceremony of the Ram temple. He was wearing a dhoti kurta then too. Today too he's wearing, adorning the same attire and he's walking the red carpet. He's going to be going inside. Very quickly I want to go across to my colleague Siddhant as well. Siddhant, the Prime Minister has arrived.
Well, that's right, Shivani, and perhaps I'm witnessing this historic day today, and you see Prime Minister is in traditional attire, as you rightly pointed out, and in fact, he's meeting the other Swamis of BAPS Sanstha. Now, the Swami who is walking next to Prime Minister Modi is the project in charge of BAPS temple in Abu Dhabi. And also, interestingly, Shivani, as I have been interacting with many of them here in Abu Dhabi, what they have told me is very interesting anecdotes of Prime Minister Modi's life and his equation with Pramukh Swami Maharaj, the late Pramukh Swami Maharaj, and his association with BAPS. In fact, when he was the Chief Minister of Gujarat, at that point in time also, before filing any nomination, the pen used to go to file the nomination from the BAPS. Pramukh Swami Maharaj used to send that pen for Prime Minister Modi. And Prime Minister Modi has always said that Pramukh Swami Maharaj may be a guru for you all, but he is a father for me. And that has always been the equation between Prime Minister Modi and late Pramukh Swami Maharaj. In fact, I would also like to share one more anecdote, Shivani, if you allow me to, that Pramukh Swami Maharaj knew that Prime Minister Modi likes wearing good clothes. So in those days, he used to send 2 pairs of clothes every year, especially for Prime Minister Narendra Modi. This is when he was not the Chief Minister of Gujarat, before taking oath as the Chief Minister of Gujarat. So this association, this love that BAPS has for Prime Minister Modi is since the days of Pramukh Swami Maharaj.
Yeah.
And today we are witnessing these historic times that it was a dream which Pramukh Swami Maharaj saw in 1997 in Sharjah, that there should be a Hindu temple in Abu Dhabi, and his Dattak Putra Prime Minister Modi is perhaps has fulfilled that dream of Pramukh Swami Maharaj.
Yeah, and who could have seen that coming, Siddhant? It's actually quite unimaginable to have such a large Hindu religious place in the middle of the Middle East. But on that significance, just stay with me, Siddhant, as we stay on these pictures as well. I want to go across to Professor Madhav Nalapad as well. Professor, we were talking about that personal connect that Prime Minister builds. Now, this is talked about with as far as relationships in Europe are concerned, in America are concerned, clearly in the Middle East with the Amirs. You saw what happened with Qatar. So what is it? You think he's just very good at it, which is why he's managed to do this? Or there is some, nuts and bolt diplomacy also behind the stage, leveraging India's position and or just positioning India correctly, which has also lent to this relationship building?
Shivani, I've always said that you need exceptional leadership for exceptional diplomacy. The diplomats can work very, very hard indeed, but then if you don't have the proper directioning by the leadership, you don't have the proper support by the leadership, well then that diplomacy, a lot of it gets diluted.
What do you think? What do you think makes Modi so special or so good at this, from your reading?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that he has absolute confidence in the people of India. And that is something which we have not seen in all the leaders of India. The fact is that he knows the Indian people are people who can do as well, if not better, than anyone else in the world. And Shivani, when you visit people, you visit your neighbors more than you visit people who are staying far away. I mean, Southern Asia is our neighborhood. Right from the Middle East to Southeast Asia, Southern Asia is not just South Asia. For a long time, we were schooled in thinking that, oh, your neighborhood is South Asia. It's Pakistan, it's Bangladesh, Nepal. Of course, it's all these things. But it's also Southern Asia. It's the entirety of the Middle East. Dr. Awad is here, a very distinguished scholar and a very good friend of many decades. Now, in Southeast Asia, that is the real neighborhood of India. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi, this entire neighborhood, he has basically looked at. He has not accepted the boundaries that others sought to impose on India.
Actually, it was quite bewildering because this region is actually so close to India. And as all of our experts were pointing out, it has been quote-unquote neglected for so long. That couldn't be very good just because of the proximity.
Well, the fact is, Shivani, that we relied on relationships with these countries through other countries, and those countries are taken much more seriously. If you look at the visiting patterns of leaders, you will find out where their priorities were. I mean, whether if you look at the visiting patterns, for example, in the United States, of Blinken and Sullivan, 85% of it is cross-Atlantic. For them, Europe is the center of the world. Asia, Latin America, Africa, forget it. It's all Europe. You can see it from the visiting. Prime Minister Modi has gone across the world. Why? Because he knows India is now a global power. And that is the difference between Prime Minister Modi and other prime ministers who look at the region through a different prism. But Modi looks at everything from an Indian prism. And that makes all the difference.
I want to go across to Mr. Awad as well, of course. And I want to ask you a very clear, open-ended question, Doctor. How does the Middle East look at Modi and India today?
Well, I think there is a huge appreciation of the India positioning itself as an emerging power for the last 2 decades, and especially the last decade have seen the rise of India and respectable country all over the world, kept away from all the internal conflict among the Arab nations, and also kept an equidistance between the difference between Israel and the Arab world, and maintained its sovereign foreign policy. All these have been matters for the Arab world. And let us also remember, Shivani, that India is a natural extension to West Asia, had it been not 76 years ago. So therefore, there is a natural bonding for centuries between India and the Arab world. And the Indian Prime Minister played definitely a major role in making this more proximity between the Arabs and India, and especially taking care of each diaspora of Indian citizens living in the Gulf, where they exceed the 8 million people are living there, and more than 14 million visit the place annually. So therefore, it is a matter of interest to see how a prime minister is making his country strong, how he is bonding these relations with the Arab world and with the rest of the world. And I think that appreciation of the pragmatism and realism with personal touch of the foreign ministry in India have made lots of difference in bringing these two together.
You know, I do want to talk to you, Dr. Awad, about the Pakistan factor that has been mentioned. How do you read into this? Because yes, both domestically and internationally, the Modi years can also be categorized as those where, of course, initially he started big bang with an unannounced visit into Pakistan, and we saw what happened later. But once that turned, India has been very stern on the terror front to Pakistan, and has managed to reduce the significance attached to Pakistan in India's diplomacy globally, and that hyphenation. It has more or less rendered Pakistan irrelevant to India globally. Would you agree with that, and how has that played into the Middle East relationship?
I think India maintained consistently a policy of no cross-border terrorism is acceptable by India, and a zero tolerance to extremism and terrorism, and therefore the whole Arab world understood this India position. In fact, even during the jihadist culture started in Afghanistan with the US and the West, along with Pakistan, which turned the hubs into the terrorist organization, opening its border, and they have been also having lots of organization in their own territory after the pullout of the United States, have made most of the Arab countries realize and recognize that it is a common interest for the nations, and especially neighboring countries, to protect their interest, and stability is the most important part of any relation. Unless and until we have peace and tranquility and in this region, you cannot have an economic boost. So therefore, These are matters of concern for the Arab nation, especially the Gulf country. And for the last 1 decade, we have witnessed that most of the Arab nations, especially the Gulf, are acting east policy. They find India, they find China, they find Korea, Japan are their own destination. So they find their roots within Asia. And I think India played a major role because they had a very respectful relation between India and the rest of the Arab world. So these are matters of concern. And when they saw Pakistan still continue with its policy toward the region and using the sympathy of the Islamic world without building anything, even to treat the Kashmiri people inside the part of Kashmir in Pakistan, that's what also made most of the Arab nations say, let us boost and let us strengthen our relation with India. That could also give another example. And this temple in Abu Dhabi, and if we look at Bahrain, Abu Dhabi, Oman, there are gurdwaras, there are temples, as the previous speakers have said. These are also shows that the integration of the Indian people within the society in those countries is a matter of interest for everybody. So if you are able to integrate and you are able to defend your own interest on a common ground, I think that's beneficial. And Pakistan has to wake up and tighten its belt to understand how to be integrated into this part of the world, apart from the Kashmir issue with India.
Yeah. You know, also in any case, the Indian diaspora is a very large diaspora in many, many big countries and is known as one of the most contributing diasporas. So each country where there are a large number of Indians actually really value their Indian community. The Indian communities in most countries are very prosperous communities, expat communities, because of their work culture and, you know, just the kind of behavior they exhibit. So it's a very valued migrant community. We are continuing to get those visuals coming in from the BAPS temple, the Prime Minister interacting with the seers of the Swaminarayan sect. Let's also quickly go across to my colleague Siddhant once more before I go back across to our guest. Siddhant, what exactly is lined up today in terms of the ceremony?
Well, that's right. So there was a Vedic yagna which already happened before Pran Pratishtha or Shivani. Today, there's going to be the Pran Pratishtha as it happens in the Hindu religion, and Prime Minister Modi is participating in the Pran Pratishtha. This is what we have been told. But right now, what I can see is that he is being given the tour of the temple by the seers of Swaminarayan sect, as you know, as I was talking about Prime Minister's association with Swaminarayan sect since even before his Chief Minister days in Gujarat. So it is indeed a historic day for Prime Minister Modi, Shivani, and in fact, this temple was something which is possible because of Prime Minister Modi's personal intervention in 2015, and then 2018 the MOU was signed, and the land finally the construction started. But due to COVID times, it was also very difficult because for some time there were a lot of difficulty going ahead with the construction when COVID-19 was going on. But finally, in 2024, the temple is being inaugurated. Now there is a tour which is being given to Prime Minister Modi a short while back. He was meeting the seers and in fact the other dignitaries of UAE at the Wall of Harmony. So there is one Wall of Harmony, Shivani, which has been built. And interestingly, the motto which is written on Wall of Harmony is Vasudev Kutumbakam. Word is one family. So the same motto was India's India's motto during G20 presidency. So that you will find at the time of the entry of inside the temple. And in fact, the beautiful thing about this temple, Shivani, is that even the stone carvings and the depiction or with depiction on the walls have been taken from the stories of various religions and cultures across the world, from Islamic culture to the Chinese culture and to the Mediterranean times. That all the stories have been depicted on the walls of Swaminarayan temple. As Prime Minister says that the diaspora represents the multicultural society of UAE. Perhaps this temple is also an epitome of the multicultural society of UAE, because this temple is not only for one religion. This temple has depiction of the stories from multiple religions, and when a person will come to the temple, he will find it really interesting to see that his religion's depiction is also there on the walls of the temple. So that's the most beautiful part of it. And also, the monuments, the landmark buildings of UAE have also been drawn, have also been carved on the walls of the temple,
Okay.
whether it's Dubai frame or the towers of Dubai, they have also been carved.
Yes.
And last
Siddharth-
and the most important one, Shivani.
Yeah, go ahead, finish.
Yes, is the shikhar, the seven shikhar symbolizes seven emirates of UAE. I think that is perhaps something. It's like thanking them for providing the land, and
Yeah.
also perhaps for all the cooperation that the royal family has shown and the government here has shown to the BAPS organization, so that they can come up with this temple. Back to you.
Yeah, Siddharth, we're going to keep coming back to you. I think a few AVs are also playing. We'll dip into what we can hear from UAE as well. Professor Brahmachalini, I want to come back to you. The Prime Minister, interestingly, has been talking about his impending third term. Now, it's interesting, he even mentioned it yesterday in his address to the diaspora and I think to the larger world community. What I want to know curiously is, how do you think he can expand on this relationship if and when that third term happens? He's been promising big things in his third term. Diplomacy-wise, for this region, if you were to talk about it, what do you see coming?
Normally, a prime minister doesn't talk of a fresh term before facing the voters, but it shows Mr. Modi's confidence in returning to power, that is already talking about his ambitions and plans in the third term. The fact is that he has raised India's profile internationally. He has provided India rapid economic growth. He has provided India political stability. And therefore, given the fact that India is doing well under his leadership, in fact, India's salience has risen across the world, he expects the voters in India would give him a third term. But from this visit, it's important, even though we're talking about right now on his inauguration of this largest stone constructed Hindu temple in the Middle East, in fact, the first stone built Hindu temple in the Middle East, behind the cultural and religious aspects of this trip have been the economic elements. For example, India and the UAE have signed a concrete deal to provide the inputs to the India, Middle East, Europe corridor, economic corridor. You know, that the vision was unveiled when President Biden was attending the G20 summit in New Delhi, and Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Salman, joined with Biden and Modi to announce this agreement of this India-Europe corridor through the Middle East. But the missing elements were obscured because the hype on the agreement obscured the fact that there wasn't anything concrete in the agreement. But now the concrete elements are coming into place. During Modi's ongoing visit to the UAE, he and the UAE President, Sheikh Mohamed, signed on to an agreement whereby the UAE and India will make this corridor a reality. For example, this corridor stretches first from India to the UAE, then goes to Saudi Arabia, then goes to Jordan, Israel, and then to the Europe. So India and the UAE have a major stake in realizing this corridor, because these are the 2 points that the first 2 points in this corridor, and therefore this agreement today between Modi and Sheikh Mohammed is an important one.
Yeah. Ashok Sajjanan, what do you see coming? What more can be built? What more can each side get from this relationship that Narendra Modi is nurturing?
Oh, definitely. I think there are huge possibilities. You know, if one could use a little floral language, one could say sky is the limit, because I think there are so many new ideas, new initiatives, new possibilities. For instance, as far as technology is concerned, as far as AI is concerned, India itself is, as far as its digital public infrastructure is concerned, there is huge possibilities in those areas, and India can definitely partner with UAE, and the United Arab Emirates is also looking at investing hugely in India. Shivani, you would recall that $75 billion they had promised to put in India's infrastructure. And, if I could also add one particular point, which is also, a political aspect of the relationship. You would recall that even in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, the UAE has promised to put in about $5 billion in building, hospitality institutions and hospitality assets.
Yes.
You would also recall that when we had organized in G20, we had organized the meeting of the tourism group in Srinagar. Then United Arab Emirates was present there. So I think, what we've been talking about, what you also referred to, Pakistan, and this was, post 2019, post Article 370. So United Arab Emirates is obviously taking, none of the narrative that Pakistan is trying to create. But coming back to your question, I think the possibilities are enormous where both the leaders can collaborate. And I'm extremely happy that both sides agreed on this IMEC. I'll tell you just one sentence on that, because after the October 7 attack and after what has started happening in as far as what started happening, there was all these statements that were coming out that now this I2U2 and IMEC is going down the drain because Israel is, in the doghouse. It's become a pariah state, etc. But I'm delighted that,
that's
both the
not
sides,
the case. Yes, clearly that's not the case, and they've moved on from that projection that was made. But interestingly, you talked about Pakistan angle, and of course post abrogation, the UAE certainly not being bothered with that. But Professor Nalapad, UAE and you could argue Saudi Arabia are the more progressive Middle Eastern countries, right? What about the rest? Is the concern of radicalization and particularly an enmity towards, let's say, the subcontinent, including India, the concerns we've had over radicalization, Wahhabism, etc., are those no longer concerns, or is this something that India would have to very carefully watch out for?
Shivani, the rulers of the Middle East are very well trained in the art of governance, and they look at facts. They don't look at opinions. And the facts are very clear. Look at the trajectory of Pakistan compared to the trajectory of India, and you'll see the difference between our inclusive trajectory and their exclusivist trajectory. The fact is, under Narendra Modi, India has been transformed. And under Mohammed bin Salman and Mohammed bin Zayed, the Middle East is getting transformed. So you have a transformed India shaking hands with a transforming Middle East.
But UAE, the point I was making, Professor, was that UAE and Saudi Arabia are slightly different than the rest of the countries, possibly?
I'd like to say that the young people are there throughout the Middle East and throughout India, throughout the subcontinent. What do young people want finally? They want a good education, a good income, a good job, and frankly, for example, you look at what is happening in Gaza, and look at where Hamas has led the people of Gaza to. The entire population of Gaza is dependent on charity for survival. And look at the difference between, one of the Gulf Cooperation Council countries, let's say Qatar, and look at the way Qatar and its economy are booming, and you'll see the difference. Qataris have got, there are certain issues regarding the way Qatar is being very soft towards certain things. Maybe it's because there needs to be some link reaching out to these people, and maybe Qatar is playing that role. But the fact of the matter is that UAE, the fact that the Sheikh Zayed is able to take this giant step forward indicates the population of the UAE, the population of the Middle East is also transforming itself. In 1981, the population was moving into a very dark space where Wahhabism, later on ISIS, Al-Qaeda, all those, the Taliban, all that developed. The Taliban, of course, in our part of the world. But today, the Middle East is being transformed again. And it is entering into a world of modern education and a world of prosperity. And where education is concerned, you have Indian educational institutions there. Manipal, for example, has a very large campus in Dubai.
Okay.
And very successful campus. And there are campuses in other centers that are being planned and that are there. And so from that point of view, the young in the Middle East are becoming much more like the young in India.
Okay,
and
fair
this
enough.
coming together is extremely important because both our people share so much. And the fact that we are working together means both of us will achieve our goals much faster.
Absolutely. I've got a final minute left. Dr. Awad, I'll give you the final minute. You very rightly pointed out, but for what happened during partition, India was the natural neighbor of the Middle East, and that connect and that relationship should not go away, and thankfully has not gone away. But what would you like to see happen, let's say, in the next decade or so? Where do you think both these regions can take their relationship? Because like I also said at the start of the show, I mean, these two regions have something to offer to the world, which is different than how the world has been run so far. And I think this partnership can dictate a little bit of that, being two such very important voices in the larger global play. Very quickly, Dr. Awad, your thoughts on that. Where can we go from
Well, I have been for the last 4 decades in Asia, and I can tell you I've been advocating a strong, bonded, proactive Indian role in the Arab affairs, and not only in the political but cultural and every part of it, economically, politically. And that's why we see this model is a modern model of India and UAE, which will be fostering and will be an example to follow in the rest of the West Asian nation to die and come closer to India, because there where our destination is. In fact, if I want to give you final answer, when India went to nuclear, I was in the school and we were coming in the street of the school celebrating India going to nuclear. So if India emerging as a power in those years in my country, Syria, I think that's the same feeling we share with India coming in the 21st century as a leading power, because the whole world, the whole structuring of the multipolar world has to be started from India.
All right. On that note, I do thank all of our experts for joining us. Stay with us here on CNN News 18. We'll continue to get you the latest from UAE. I have to slip into a very short break. Thanks a lot for watching.
Of our, of our whole life. Without the youth, we'd be going absolutely nowhere. So I think that focus has to be there. And once you get that focus, that the youth, you are our future, then I think things, the jigsaw puzzle kind of gets neater, and you're not so puzzled anymore. Because I have noticed that even a song like Koi Yahan Aha Nache Nache, which was my song, Dekhte Dekhte, it's already 40 years since that song came.
40, imagine.
Or Ramba Ho. So one needs time for something to become a classic. And you can't become a classic just overnight, it's not possible. And so there are certain songs which even great composers like R.D. Burman and all were not appreciated in their time. But today, he's one of the most remixed and re-remixed, musicians of all time. And I think that is what it's all about. When you realize that and accept that a song is always bigger than the singer. Because the song will keep coming back over and over again if you give it life. Whichever song it is. Like, how can something like, say, Hotel California, or Can't Buy Me Love, or I Can Get No Satisfaction, or all these old songs, how do they, they're all my contemporaries, okay?
So joining us on TBC next is everybody's favorite, certainly one of my favorite. She remains ageless and how, she remains timeless and how. And if you weren't convinced about it, well, you have to hear her singing Miley Cyrus's latest song that won her a Grammy. Usha Uttam, welcome to TBC. So glad to have you here. Like I said, it is only you can transition from Koi Yahan Nache Nache to Miley Cyrus's Flowers. You have done it for so many decades now. How? How do you keep it so relevant and keep it so alive?
Well, first of all, let me say it's wonderful to be with you on CBC. Namaskar, namaskaram, sat sri akal, salam alaikum. I'm so excited to be with you. What can I say? Because this is such an important thing in my life, really. And I'm sure all of you would agree that, as you said, you know, decades, 54 years of singing some song like Fever and then California Dreaming and then, so many songs. And then suddenly you do Miley Cyrus's Flowers. But actually, it's not like that. I've always believed that a song is a song and it's timeless no matter what. And actually, retro is where it's at now. People all want to hear recall. And in my show list, it's always been that the older songs get more people more energized than the newer ones. Now, Flowers, and of course, songs with lyrics, okay? There was a time when I Will Survive was a breakup song for every girl, right? And Gloria Gaynor's song. And was on my list, actually. In the batting order, it would have been third or fourth in the show. Then slowly what happened was, newer songs came, or I started singing Dawn 2 because I'd sung in that. Then I'd done Bulea. And of course, Dam Maro Dam and I Love You remain a constant, okay? It's always there. So when my daughter, Anjali told me, she just sent me a recording of what she had done, okay? Of Flowers. And I just thought it was such a marvelous piece of song.
Yeah.
That... and she told me that, Amma, why don't you do it as well? So when Anjali told me about this song, I just thought it was such a brilliant piece of lyric, really. I just loved the lyrics. We were right till we weren't. That line just says so many things. Built a home and saw it burn. There are some songs that really give me goosebumps just thinking about the lyric, And then when it says, why do we depend on everybody else to do things for us or make us feel good? And this one is not really a breakup song. It's such a positive song of Nari Shakti, really. Nari Shakti, Stree Shakti, and woman power, really. And on this Valentine's Day, I would definitely say that it's not just for the women, it's for the men as well. Why do we need somebody else to buy us flowers? Why do we need that? Or why do we need someone else to talk to for hours? Why don't we do it with ourselves? And, there are so many positive feelings in this song that it just became marvelous. So it came onto my repertoire list for the shows about maybe 2 months ago. And whoever thought that she was going to get a Grammy for this, and my rendition would become viral. I was really, really thankful. I'm full of gratitude to my followers, and shall I say to my, not followers, to my supporters who've supported my music and loved me as I am.
Loved you, we all love you. And I'm actually loving how it's early in the morning, but you are all in your avatar. I'm loving the red on you right now. I'm also loving that red bindi. All of this is quite marvelous, like you said. But you've had quite a year, ma'am. You just got the Padma. Your songs are viral. I really want to understand, what is your mantra to keeping it relevant, to staying so enthusiastic about life and your love for music, even at this age?
My mantra is to be able to accept that you have to make time your friend, not fight with time. I think if you make time your friend and realize that the youth are the future of our whole life, without the youth, we're going absolutely nowhere. So I think that focus has to be there. And once you get that focus, that the youth, you are our future, then I think things, the jigsaw puzzle kind of gets neater, and you're not so puzzled anymore. Because I have noticed that even a song like Koi Yahan Aha Nache Nache, which was my song. Dekhte Dekhte, it's already 40 years
Wow.
since that song came.
40, imagine.
Ramba Ho. So one needs time for something to become a classic. And you can't become a classic just overnight. It's not possible. And so there are certain songs which even great composers like R.D. Burman and all were not appreciated.
Viewers, I want you to now focus on the pictures on your screens. Take in these images. These are images for the ages. 18 lakh bricks, 7 lakh man hours and 1.8 lakh cubic meters of sandstone from Rajasthan have gone into creating the edifice of, viewers, what can only be called an ode to Bharat's pluralism, and, viewers, a concrete symbol of Sanatan Dharma's universalism, its universalist ethos captured by the motto Vasudhaiva Kutumbukum. We are talking about, viewers, the gargantuan temple, the BAPS Swaminarayan temple that has been inaugurated and consecrated by the Prime Minister today in Abu Dhabi. It is caparisoned, viewers, by not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, but 7 spires, as it weaves together the 7 Emirates in the Gulf, viewers. The Prime Minister is at hand. This particular temple, built at the cost of 700 crores, will serve as a beacon of Sanatan Dharma in yet another part of the world, viewers. Temples from Brampton to Birmingham to Bali to Abu Dhabi, viewers, symbolizes India's expansive spiritual power, its enduring appeal, its philosophical cosmopolitanism, viewers, its acceptance. And this, viewers, is a bricks and mortar riposte to all those who say that India and the Hinduism in India is parochial. It is exceptionalist. Viewers, the UAE's Emir, Abu Dhabi's Emir, has granted land to construct this gorgeous edifice, an ode to Indian civilizational Sanatan Dharma. It towers, viewers, and it encompasses temples to Lord Ram, Lord Shiva, Lord Jagannath, Lord Krishna, Lord Swaminarayan, considered a reincarnation of Lord Krishna, Tirupati Balaji and Lord Ayappa. It weaves together in symbolic tapestry the diversity of Sanatan Dharma in the subcontinent, viewers. And it locates it in the sterile but obviously serene expanse of the desert in the Emirates, viewers. The Prime Minister arrived about half an hour ago. He took a little tour around the compound of this temple, and let me give you a little inclination, viewers, about what is in this compound. Using perhaps the greatest architectural feints, viewers, they have managed to create an oasis in the desert, viewers. The structure is surrounded by rivers, artificial ones, that were created from the waters of the Ganga and the Yamuna. Varanasi-like ghats have been created on one side, through which the artificial river passes. Viewers, this is a small tribute to the complexity of temple architecture we see in the subcontinent. It is built in the Nagara style, the same style in which the Ram temple in Ayodhya